What's up, everybody? Happy New Year. Oh, wait, that's tomorrow. Sorry. Hey, man, I'm so glad you're here. My name is Adam. I'm the student pastor, like Brady said, and I'm pumped to be with you this morning. As you guys hopefully know, we're about to hit the reset button on 2017, about 13 hours from now, and kick into a new year. Before we do that, I wanted you to reflect for a second about the last year. So think about 2017 and your life and what happened. If you were to tell one story from your life in 2017, what story would you tell? Think about it for 12 seconds. Everybody got something? Okay, now turn to the person next to you and say, I got a story to tell you after church. All right, and hold them to it. Actually make them tell you that story. Anyways, I'm curious as we think about the last year, like how was 2017 for you? Like maybe it was tough. Maybe somebody that you love got sick or somebody that you love died. Maybe you had some marital problems or relational issues. Maybe you're struggling with how to parent your kids or your teenagers. Or maybe like 2017 was your best year ever. And you're like, man, this was awesome. I became a parent, or I got to have the joy of watching my kids grow, or maybe you fell in love in 2017, or maybe you're still single and you're like, man, am I ever going to find the one, and you're feeling lonely. Maybe you lost weight in 2017, maybe you gained weight in 2000. I don't know what the last year held for you, but I think it's important for us to reflect on the past, because pretty soon, these years turn into decades, and then the decades turn into, boom, you're in heaven. Now, imagine that day happened, hopefully many, many years from now. You're in heaven one day, and you're looking back at your life. What story are people going to tell of your life on that day when you're in heaven? Check this out. One day, my body and your body is probably going to end up in a place like this. When that happens, hopefully people will come here to visit you and to remember you. And my question is, when they do, what kind of stories are they going to tell about your life? This is Robert Lowenberg, and what we know about his story is that he touched the lives of many, and he'll remain forever in our hearts. This is Nancy Elizabeth, and the story that her family remembers her for is a story of friendship, of laughter, and spending time with them on the golf course. This is Butch, and what we know about his story, or at least what his family chose to remember about him, is he was a beloved husband, father, and grandfather. Making me think that in his story, family was a really big deal to him. This is Robert and Marianne Schwind, and what I love about this is the only thing it says on here is Jesus is the light, making me think that these guys' story was all about Jesus. So when your life's over, when you're buried and you're in the ground, people are going to define your entire life by just a few words or maybe just a sentence. My question is, what do you want those words to be? What story do you want your life to tell? Some of you guys are like, wow, Adam, this is kind of depressing. I thought you were going to come out like, what's up, everybody? Who's ready for 2018? Woo! It's 2018 Okay, sorry. I had to get that out, you know. Some of you guys are like, Brady said this guy was crazy. Just want to make sure everybody's with me. Are you guys with me? Okay, I want you to really focus in, because I think today could be one of the most important messages that you ever hear, because we're going to think intentionally about how we want our lives to end. They say you should begin with the end in mind, and so what I want to do is, as we get ready to begin 2018, I want to begin 2018 with the end of 2018 in mind, but also with the end of our lives in mind, so that we can live a story that actually matters. So I don't know about you, but I actually want to live a life that's going to matter, and live a story that's going to matter for something beyond just me. And so as we start this year, I want us to keep in mind Ephesians chapter 5. This should be on the screen for you. It says this: so be very careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. Don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do. And I think that if we can make the most of every opportunity, like the scripture says, then we'll be able to live lives that actually matter. And so I'm wondering, does anybody here like to live a life that's actually going to matter for something beyond them? Cool. I hope that wasn't the only one, but you never know. Here's a problem. Like most of us, I think if we're honest, most of us want to live a story that really matters. The problem is naturally we don't. Naturally we live stories that are small, stories that don't really make a difference. So how do we shift that to become a person whose story actually matters? And so what I want to do to help figure this out is look at Hebrews chapter 11 to kind of find out. Now, Hebrews chapter 11, if you're a church person, this is known as the Hall of Faith. Kind of like the Hall of Fame, but the Hall of Faith. You guys don't get it, do you? Anyways, I'm just going to be honest. If you're not a church person, the people like me who are church people, we do some really cheesy things sometimes. I'm just going to be honest. Like the Hall of Faith, okay? I think it's a little bit cheesy, but it's a little cheesy, but if you actually read it, there's some massive inspiration for people who actually want to live stories that matter, because there's all these stories of all these people who did crazy things for God. So let's jump into it. Hebrews chapter 11, starting in verse 4, it says, by faith Abel, and then it goes on and talks about Abel's story. It says, by faith Enoch, and then it goes on and talks about Enoch's story. It says, by faith Noah, and it goes on and talks about Noah's story. Then it says, by faith Abraham. Now Abraham, I'm actually going to tell you what it says about Abraham. Check this out. Abraham, when called to go to a place that he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. Now check this out, verse 10. For he was looking forward to a city with foundations whose architect and builder is God. This is key. The thing that allowed Abraham to live a story that we're talking about 3,000-4,000 years later is that he was looking forward to a city built by God, a city that was in heaven. He was looking towards eternity. He was focused on eternity. And that's key. Let's continue, verse 11. And by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead. And so in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from the dead. Now, in this chapter of Hebrews 11, there's 40 verses. Out of all these verses, talking about all these heroes of the faith, and every single one of them gets like one verse or part of a verse. Abraham, we just read them, has 8 verses that are all about his story. I'm thinking, whoa, like what makes Abraham different than all the other people that this thing talks about? I'm like, well, I don't know. Let's find out. So I'm going to walk through the story of Abraham, because I think we're going to find some stuff in Abraham's story that's going to help us to live better stories. So if you're with me, let's dig in. Say, Father Abraham. All right. Most of you guys are with me. Good. Now, if you've heard the story of Abraham before, it's kind of a famous story from the Bible. Don't tune me out, because I think I want to look at it from a slightly different angle today, that if you can get what I'm going to try to show you from Abraham's life, it'll help you to actually live a story that matters. If you haven't heard the story of Abraham, get ready. It's kind of a crazy story. So we're going to go back to Hebrews 11, verse 8. It says, by faith Abraham, when he was called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. Okay, now that verse is referring back to a verse in Genesis chapter 12, the first book in the Bible, where Abraham's going along, he's living life, and God comes to him one day and says, hey, Abraham, I want you to move to go to somewhere else. And Abraham's like, okay, God, sure, you're God, I'll do what you want. Where do you want me to go? And God's like, I'll tell you later. And Abraham's like, really? And so this is kind of my translation of the story, and God says, yeah, just trust me. Just you need to leave where you're at, take your whole family, and go. Abraham's like, all right, so Genesis chapter 12, verse 4, here's his response. So Abram left, pause. Notice it says Abram instead of Abraham. A little bit later in the story, Abram, this guy named Abram gets his name changed to Abraham. So if you're reading, it's not like a typo or anything. It's actually like the same guy. He was Abram, then he was Abraham. I'm just going to call him Abraham the whole time. Cool? Okay. Anyways, so Abram left as the Lord told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. So Abraham obeys God at age 75, packs up his whole family, and this isn't just like his 2 kids and his dog. This is like he's got herds of animals, and probably it's his whole extended family. There may be 100 people probably who he's like, all right, let's go. He's 75 years old. We're moving. Where are we going, Grandpa? I don't know. We're just going to go. Like, that's crazy. Most of us at age 75, we're like, well, I'm ready to retire, I'm already retired, I'm ready to just chill and take it easy. I'm not ready for a crazy adventure into the mysterious led by God. But Abraham knew something that we don't know. See, Abraham, he was focused on eternity. And I think some of you, maybe you're going through life and you're just coasting through life. I think in 2018, God's going to say to you, hey, let's go. We're going somewhere. And you're going to be like, where are we going, God? He's like, I'll tell you later. Let's go. Just come on. See, Abraham, he lived by faith, which meant that he lived for God and not for himself, which meant he did whatever God told him to do. And this is exactly what God wants us to do. Check out 2 Corinthians 5. It says, for Christ's love compels us, because we are convinced that one died for all, and therefore all died. And he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again. He says, if we're following Jesus, we should not be living for ourselves, we should be living for him. So what are you living for today? If you're only living for yourself, that's what's going to happen is that's going to end up in a really small story that's not really going to matter that much. I mean, I lived this way for the first 18 years of my life. Life revolved around me and what I wanted and the sports I wanted to play and the things I wanted to be successful at and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, none of you care. You're like, oh, woohoo, because I was living a story that was small. It only mattered for me, and therefore it didn't make a difference for anybody. Honestly. And if you're living only for yourself, what's going to result in that is a really small story that's not going to make a difference in anybody else's life. See, if you're going to live a story that actually matters, it's a story that's not about you. Abraham's story is not about him, it's about God. So turn to the person next to you and say, it's not about you. Okay, come on, you guys got to help me out. We need to participate here. We're going to try that again. Turn to the other person on the other side of you and say, it's not about you either. There we go. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. So, where were we? Okay. So Abraham, he takes his family, 75 years old. They move to this new land. They get to this new land. Things are going pretty good. And then one day, Abraham does something really dumb. Anybody here ever done something really dumb? You're like, I'm doing good. I'm on track. I'm following God. And then, so Abraham, he gets scared because his wife is really beautiful, apparently. And so, that was a danger back in that day. So he gets scared. He says, all right, I'm going to tell everybody that my wife Sarah is actually my sister. So he tells the people of Egypt, he tells Pharaoh, oh, this is my sister. Isn't she beautiful? And they're like, yeah. And so he sells his wife Sarah to Pharaoh to be Pharaoh's wife. I'm like, that's jacked up. Like, some of you guys think, man, God can't use me. I've done some bad things. Have you ever sold your wife to another man to be her wife? I mean, that's weird. That's like I haven't even done stuff that bad. That's cool. Abraham's jacked up. That's good news for you and me who think, man, I've sinned too much. I've failed too much. I've messed up too much. Maybe you have. The good news, God still wants to use you and use your story to make a difference in other people's lives. So Abraham, he does this dumb thing. We're not going to dig into it much more than that, but just know that even Abraham, who's got this story we're still talking about thousands of years later, he messed up. Not only did he mess up, he started doubting God. God told him, you're going to have a son. And he begins to doubt because he's like, well, I was 75 when you told me that, and now I'm like 85, 90. The years are going by, and Abraham is beginning to say, like, all right, God, I don't know how this is going to work. I'm 90 years old. I don't know if I can really have a kid anymore. If you've ever doubted God, good news. He can still use you. Check this out, Genesis 15. Sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abraham in a vision and said, do not be afraid, Abraham, for I will protect you and your reward will be great. But Abraham replied, oh, sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings when I don't even have a son? He's like, come on, God, you said I was going to have a son. I don't have a son. It's not working. Since you've given me no children, Eleazar of Damascus, a servant in my household, will inherit all my wealth. You have given me no descendants of my own, so one of my servants will be my heir. He's like, well, I guess what you said is going to happen is not going to happen. I'm going to just pass this all along to one of my servants. Verse 4, then the Lord said to him, no, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own who will be your heir. He's like, oh, really? Still? I'm old, God. Then, verse 5, then the Lord took Abram outside. It's like Abram was sitting in his tent, and God's like, come here, come outside. He takes him outside and said to him, look up at the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you're going to have. So Abram goes outside, he looks up, I'm assuming it's night, and he's like, whoa. He looks at all the stars. This is before the days of electricity, meaning you could see more stars. Like, I don't know if I wasn't around, but I'm guessing you could see more stars back then before electricity than you can now. And so Abraham's looking up, and it's kind of like probably those pictures you see if you Google stars, and it's like, whoa, and he's like, oh, I can't even count all those stars, God. Are you kidding me? And God's like, that's right. That's how much I'm going to bless you and how many descendants you're going to have. See, what Abraham needed is he had to change his point of view. He was just looking at life from like his earthly, like, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to have a kid, God. And God had to like, shh. And he's like, oh. He begins to live in the wonder of seeing things the way God sees them. He begins to view things from a perspective of eternity. And I think some of us, maybe as we begin 2018, what we need to do is shift our perspective and begin to see things from a different point of view, and begin to see things from an eternal perspective rather than just an earthly perspective. Now, the story, I told you he had a crazy story. This is where it gets weird, okay? Genesis chapter 17. Let me just read it to you. This is my covenant with you. This is God talking to Abraham. This is my covenant with you and with your descendants after you. The covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision. It will be a sign of the covenant between me and you. Now, let me just pause and say, every single time God told Abraham to do something, it wasn't comfortable. It was like outside of his comfort zone, sometimes physically, sometimes mentally, sometimes spiritually, but it wasn't comfortable. And especially this one. Like, I don't know if you know what circumcision is. It's kind of awkward to talk about it in church, but let me just say, without getting into detail, you can Google it when you get home or whatever, but it's going to take weeks to recover from, and it's not going to be very comfortable. Okay, it's going to hurt. And so God tells Abraham, hey, I want you to get circumcised and all the men in your family, which by this time there's hundreds of them. And so I'm thinking, this is crazy. Like, God, what? This doesn't even make sense, God. And there were cultural reasons for it back then. We're Americans in 2018, so we don't get it all. But regardless of that, I'm like, this is not going to be a fun thing. Okay, God, you're God, I guess. Like, today in America, circumcision happens when you're like 3 days old or 5 days old when you're a baby so that you won't remember it. Like, I think if they know if we do this to people when they're above the age of a teenager, it's going to psychologically scar them for life. So we got to do it when they're a baby where I don't remember anything from my first year of life. So I'm like, all right, I'm good. That's how we do it in America because we're like, yeah, it's going to jack people up. God apparently had a different, hey, I'm going to wait. So it says when Abraham was 99 years old, he got circumcised on that day along with all the other people, all the other men in his tribe. And like, why would he do that? I don't know, but I know that Abraham, he was focused on, he was saying something we're not saying. He was focused on eternity. So that story continues to go. Everything is going smooth. And eventually, Abraham's wife, Sarah, actually does have a baby. They name him Isaac. Abraham was like 100 years old at the time. I believe his wife, Sarah, was like 90 years old. She gives birth to a son named Isaac. And things are going good. They're like, yes, we had a son. God is faithful to his promises. We knew we could trust him. And they're going along good. And then Genesis chapter 22 happens, and it gets crazy. Sometime later, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. God says, okay, Abraham, kill your son. What? Like, this is nuts. First he tells him to get circumcised, then he tells him to kill his kid. And Abraham, I think his faith is so much bigger than all of our faith would be, that Abraham's like, okay, God, well, you said that through this kid, you're going to give me descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, so I'm guessing that if I have to kill him, you're going to raise him from the dead. Like, that's the kind of reasoning that was going on in Abraham's head. And so he's like, all right, whatever you say, God. He takes his son to go and kill him. He's about to kill his son. God provides another animal that he's able to do for the sacrifice, and he doesn't have to end up killing his son. But, like, who does this? Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'd like to believe that I have a strong faith in following Jesus. But if he was like, hey, Adam, go kill your son, I'd be like, let's just be honest. Like, who's going to do that? But Abraham has this, it's like he was seeing something that we don't see. He was focused on eternity. And so, check this out. Hebrews 11:12 says this. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. See, Abraham believed God and he acted on faith. And as a result, God allowed him to be the father of nations. Like, on his own, he couldn't even father one kid. But when he trusted God, he became the father of millions. And his story lives on today. And so as we think about this coming year in 2018, you could live for yourself, and life will probably be easier. It'll probably be more comfortable. You'll probably watch more Netflix. You might party a lot. Like, I don't know. Like, if you live for yourself this year, it could be fun. It could be a lot of different things. You might get a lot of money and have a really nice house and whatever. Or you could be like Abraham and say, you know what? I'm going to live for God. See, what Abraham did is he leveraged his life in a way that was going to matter for eternity. And so you're like, okay, that's cool that Abraham did that. How am I supposed to do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. James chapter 4, verse 14 says this, what is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. A mist. James says your life is like a mist. Like, you're boiling a pot of water and the steam comes up, that's a mist. And you're like, 3 seconds later, it's gone. God's saying that's what your life is like. It's there, it's short, it's there for a moment, gone. To help you guys, you're like, I don't think you guys are tracking with me. So to help illustrate this, Brady, help me out. Brady's going to help me out. Everybody give it up for Brady over here. He's got a rope. Now this rope is going to represent your life. And so give me this part. Did we already get it tangled? All right. I'm going to hold this end. And Brady just walked that way. So, oh yeah, there we go. Yes, it's not tangled. Okay. So keep going. Brady, see if you can, just take it around. See if you can circle all the people in here. Yeah, keep it going. Keep it going. There we go. Good, good. Yeah, there we go. We're good. Oh, don't knock anything. So as Brady's bringing that around, let me explain. Hey, if you've seen this illustration before, I saw this from somebody else. I'm like, that's genius. I got to share this. This red part right here is going to represent your life on earth. Okay? Your life on earth. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 100 years. This white part is going to represent your life in eternity. And it's going. You still going, Brady? Nice, nice. And it keeps going to the back of the room. And then it's going to take a U-turn. It's going to go down to Colorado Springs. Then it's going to go down to Mexico and infinity. Okay? This white line goes for infinity. But what the Bible teaches us is that what we do in the red determines everything that happens in the white. What we do in the red is going to have massive implications for everything that happens down this line for millions and millions and millions of years. Okay? And so let's go back to Ephesians 5 where we started, which says, be very careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity, for the days are evil. Making the most of every opportunity means using our time in the red to invest in things that are going to matter in eternity in the white, because they're going to matter for millions and millions of years. You know what a lot of people do, especially in America? We're like, I'm going to use this part of my red and leverage it for this 10 years right here where I'm going to retire, and I'm going to just be comfortable. It's going to be all good. They're investing this part of their life so that this part of their life will be awesome, ignoring eternity. Like what God is saying, and I think what Abraham understood is that, you know what, I'm going to invest all of this red for the white, because this is going to matter forever. If you want to have a story that actually matters, you got to use this part to invest in something that's going to go beyond you. So, like I began to understand this principle that, like, yeah, I want to invest my life in eternity and things are going to matter. Many years ago, I started to think, like, I want to live for eternity. And so, and so I've been doing that for a while. But in 2017, God was kind of like, hey, Adam, you need to shift some things. You need to change some things in order to, like, actually do a better job at leveraging your short life for eternity. And so I decided in 2017 I was going to do an Ironman triathlon. Some of you guys are like, wait, what does that have to do with eternity? Like, how's riding your bike for a long time going to matter in eternity? Well, stick with me. I'm going to explain. So, about 2002, I made this goal of my life. Not a resolution. People make New Year's resolutions, and we don't make those. Like, that's a bad word almost, because everybody knows if you make a New Year's resolution that you're not going to fulfill it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make a goal. Forget resolution, goal. So I set a goal in 2002. I'm going to read the entire Bible in 1 year. I thought, man, I'm a pastor. I'm going to make a goal to read the Bible in a year. This is going to be good. So I try it 2002. I'm doing good for like the first month. I read through Genesis, and then I get sidetracked, and I failed. Didn't read the whole Bible in 2002. Tried again in 2003, failed. Tried again in 2004, failed. Tried again in 2005, failed. 2006, 7, 8, I was like, forget it. I'm not even going to try. I got motivated again. It's 2009. This year, I'm going to read the Bible. I've been a pastor for years. I got to be able to say I've read the Bible in 1 year. And so in 2009 or whatever, I tried, failed. 2010, tried, failed again. 2011, anyways, you kind of get the picture. So for the last 15 years, I've been trying to read through the Bible, and like, I've read through the Bible, just not all in 1 year. And so if you ever had that goal and failed, you're not alone. I get you. But anyways, in 2017, I decided I'm going to let the audio Bible count. I'm like, I got to get this. I can't, like, fail at reading the Bible for my whole life. So I decided to let the audio Bible count. And this is where the Ironman thing comes in. Because I decided, you know what, I'm going to be running a lot, training for this race. And so I decided, okay, every time I'm running, no matter what, if I'm running at all, I'm going to be listening to the Bible as I run. And somebody goes, that's not the same thing. That doesn't count. I'm like, dude, it's the same words. I'm just not looking at them. I'm hearing them. It's like God speaking right to my ears. And so the awesome thing was, I ran a lot in 2017 because I was training for this really long race. And by the end of the year, I read through the whole Bible twice. How awesome is that? For 15 years, I failed to read the Bible, and then I did it twice in 1 year. I was like, this is awesome. Why? Because here's why. Because I decided I'm going to take something that I'm already doing and figure out, how do I leverage this thing to have an impact for eternity? How do I leverage this time? Because let's be honest, riding a bike and running for a long time doesn't really have much value for eternity. But then I realized it does, because I turned it into reading God's word. Not only that, I started to exercise more. I started to eat healthier. And so what happened as a kind of a side benefit, I started to get more physical energy from getting healthier. I started to get more mental sharpness because my brain was working better, because my body was working better, and I was eating better. I started to get more emotionally healthy, which helped me to be better at serving God, which was, I'm trying to, it allowed me to leverage this for more impact for that. Not only that, I'm thinking, awesome. Because I was on this trajectory, like many Americans, that when I'm 60, 70, I'm like die of a heart attack. I don't know. But I got more healthy, and so now maybe I'm gonna get a few extra years, good years of being able to have energy to serve God when I'm older, and maybe in those extra years that I got, I'm gonna invest in a young person who's gonna go on to share the message of Jesus with the rest of planet Earth. I don't know, maybe, but what I know is that I'm trying, like, how can I do everything in my life and here and leverage it for eternity? That's just like what's on my mind these days, and what I want to challenge you to do the same thing as you go into 2018. Think, how can I leverage my life, this little bit of time I have on earth, this one slot, 2018, right there, to make an impact millions of years from now. I think this was Abraham's secret, this concept that I'm trying to show you. This is what Abraham got. Now, I actually skipped some of these verses earlier. You might have noticed. If you didn't, now you do. Let me read you Hebrews 11:13. It kind of shares the secret that Abraham and all the other people in the Hebrews 11 Hall of Faith, this was their secret. Check it out. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting they were foreigners and strangers on earth. See, these people admitted, earth is not my permanent home. Life is not all about the red. It's about this. He goes on and says, people who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had an opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. These people that talks about, they were history makers. They lived stories that actually mattered. Why? Because they were living for heaven. They were living for this, not for just this. And they knew this earth wasn't their real home. And so they spent their life, I'm living for eternity. I'm focused on eternity. I'm living for what really matters. And let me read to you the end of that hall of faith here. Because he goes on, he talks about Abraham, he talks about a bunch of other people, and then near the end, Hebrews 11:32, it says this, and what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith they conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions. Now, imagine if that was on your tombstone. Adam Dorband, shut the mouths of lions. That'd be pretty epic. I don't know, just thinking. Well, like, this is some stuff that you could put on a tombstone and be like, dude, that's legit. Quenched the fury of the flames and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. Others were tortured and refused to be released so they may gain a better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, while still others were chained and put in prison. They were stoned. They were sawed in two. They were put to death by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains and in caves and in holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith. These people, they lived stories that actually mattered, and now we're talking about them thousands of years later because their stories inspire us. Guys, the beginning, you saw that video. I'm looking at these tombstones in the cemetery, and one of them that I point out, it was like, she'll always be with us on the golf course. Now, it's not a bad thing to spend your life on the golf course, but I don't want my life to be remembered for like, yeah, Adam, he loves to golf. I mean, there's nothing wrong with golfing, but if the story that your life tells is one of like, he was a great golfer, like, who cares? Like, in eternity, nobody cares. It's like if all you guys remember from me is like, yeah, Adam, he did triathlons, then I failed. Who cares? That doesn't matter for eternity. I want to leverage my life in such a way that when I'm gone, people are going to tell us like, oh, Adam did stuff that actually mattered for eternity. And so that's me. I want to live a story that's actually going to matter. And I'm wondering, Maybe you want to do the same thing. Maybe you want to live a story that's actually going to matter. So I got one final verse for you, because if you keep reading in Hebrews, we read through parts of chapter 11. 11 just continues into chapter 12, and it gives us the secret of how we can do it, because all of 11 is just kind of telling about them and what they did. Here's what chapter 12 says to us. This is a really famous verse. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, since you are surrounded by such a large crowd of witnesses to the life of faith," what that's referring to is all the people in the Hall of Faith chapter, all those epic heroes, that's referring to them. "Since they went before us, here's what you should do. Let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us." Verse 2, this is key. This is how we do it. It says, "We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus." The way we live a story like these guys lived an epic story is we keep our eyes on Jesus. And then it says this, "Jesus is the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated at the place of honor beside God's throne." Check this out. Jesus is now in heaven beside the throne of God. Okay? Are you with me here? And this verse says, fix our eyes on Jesus. That means where is Jesus? He's in heaven. Heaven is an eternal place. Like he is in eternity. And so what we need to do is fix our eyes on eternity, which is exactly what Abraham did. He had his focus on eternity. He had his focus on this. Not just on earth, like not on the few years here, but he lived his life here with this in mind. Like, what if we did that? What if we were going to start, let's start now in 2018. What could you do in 2018 in order to leverage your life for an impact in eternity? Maybe you need to do something crazy like an Iron Man. I don't know, maybe not. That was what I did last year. Or maybe you do something more simple, like you heard about the 21 days of prayer. What if you're like, you know what, I'm going to start 2018 for 21 days in a row. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to go to church and I'm going to pray. I'm just going to fix my eyes on Jesus every day. Fix my eyes on Jesus. Spend an hour just fixing my eyes on Jesus. Well, that's what Hebrews 12 told us we should do, right? Like fix our eyes on Jesus. I'm guessing if you were to start 2018 fixing your eyes on Jesus through 21 days of prayer, boom, you'd probably live a story that mattered more than if you don't. I don't know what you need to do, what your story is. Maybe you need to start something that you've been afraid to start. Maybe you need to stop something that you haven't been able to stop. I don't know. But I know that if you'll purposely invest your time and your energy and your money into things that are going to matter for eternity, 2018 could be a lot different than 2017. Like imagine if we began 2018 focused on how am I going to live for eternity? So here's my challenge. It's New Year's Eve. Take some time today. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if you're having a big party tonight or whatever, but before the party starts, take some time, maybe get alone with God, take out a piece of paper, a pen, a phone, and just write some stuff down. What can I do this year to leverage my life to have a maximum impact in eternity? Like be purposeful about it, think about it, write it down so that maybe when you get to the end a year from now, you'll look back and the story that you'll tell will be one of like, whoa, I actually did something that's going to matter in eternity. That's my prayer, is that Summit Church will be a people who leverage their life for eternity in 2018. I'm going to pray, but before I pray, I got to tell you two things. Number one, we're going to do a song after we pray. During that song, we're going to pass around the baskets for offering. So if you want to give, please give. If not, just hand that basket to prayer. Also, if you filled out a card, a connection card with prayer requests or anything, stick it in that basket. But then as they're doing that, as this song plays, I want you to think about this. This song is talking about the wonder of living and seeing things from God's perspective. As they play this song, I want you to think about, God, what's 2018 going to look like? God, what do you want me to do in 2018? So just take a moment before you take off and leave and get on to 2018. Let's just take the rest of our time in here. Just consider, God, what do you want me to do in 2018? Let's pray. God, I love you. Thank you for the story of Abraham. that teaches us that we need to fix our eyes on the eternal. God, help us as a church, help us as individuals to live for things that are actually going to matter in 2018. God, we need your help to do it on our own. We're just going to be selfish and live for ourselves. God, I pray that you would help us to be people who live for you and not for ourselves in 2018. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.